Did you read through that?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. I haven't really either.
Tom, it's not the one for the project over here, is it?
Hmm.
Oh, what's that regarding?
This was Baird. They sent it to you last week. 2:30
Yeah,
PM.
no, I didn't read that one.
Should we wait for George? Get there without him. Stop glass. George is, was a big started. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did you do the roll call?
Sure.
Here it is.
Tom,
I gotta go. Here.
Wes,
Here.
John?
Here.
Kurt?
Here.
Kurt?
Here.
Jean is excused. Steve?
Here.
I've not heard from Eric, and George is here, but he's
Here,
leaving.
but I gotta go, yeah, and I'll try and be there. I'll try to be back, can I talk real quick before I go? Or, no, that's okay. The only thing I looked over, I didn't get a chance to look over everything that you sent, me and, on the changes. The only one that caught my attention that, was for the solar is, okaying, putting the parcels together. And it makes sense. It seems like the right thing to do, but I got thinking about, if we do that on this one, what's to say other people couldn't do it for all the other things in zoning? You know, hey, I want to put up a garage, but I don't have enough room for the setback. I'll get with my neighbor and put up a garage on both properties, and we'll be fine. And just different things like that. But So I don't know if we're opening up a can of worms by doing that. And if it would just be easier for them maybe to set up an LLC or something for themselves and just combine those parcels together before.
So the two issues with that, one, if it's going to be, you have to have a separate application for each parcel.
But if they did it together, if they joined it and said, we're gonna join these parcels together, and, we're gonna be joint owners, they would say.
Yeah. The one thing, and this was based on what Lance told us, but if you have adjoining property owners that both have a lease, that's the only time that you could have, that's the only time that you would be able to get away from the setback.
From the zone.
From the setback.
Okay, good.
All right, so that each adjoining parcel has to have a lease, and then with a solar developer, and they wouldn't have to have a setback from the property line. Otherwise, they might end up having to be, even though it's the same project, might end up having to be a setback off each property line.
Right, which doesn't make any sense at all. But I just didn't want our zoning to be hindered. Somebody come down the road and say, hey, well, we're gonna work together like they did, and,
Yeah.
we're gonna have this project now, we're gonna have our, barn on both halves, and forget the setbacks. We're gonna have solar all the way across, and, at our property, yeah, you say that, but, you don't have to, because we're gonna use both ends there with our setback. So, I don't know, it just came to mind when I was reading through it. but-
It's a good thought. If you're a bank gonna loan somebody money to build a structure, or loan somebody money to buy land, a bank wouldn't go for that, They'd certainly want the title to be clear.
Yeah. Right, and then if they're gonna, sell or something happens, where I'm thinking, okay, well, how could they get around that? Well, why don't they, just join now and join together, or do an LLC for both properties, have them together, and they'd be good.
Yeah.
And put it back onto them to just do that. So, all right, I got an emergency, I'm sorry. That
Okay,
was it.
yep, thanks.
I was trying to be back.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from our last two meetings. We had one on February 8th and one on February 22nd. Workshop, 22nd.
The only thing I had before we had the February 22nd meeting, under the last thing under the host agreement, is in bold. The last bullet point I'm reading there says the board did not feel an official report from the Bell Associates. That's all it says, was necessary what we did, I'm not very prepared for this, we discussed. We kind of squeezed it.
I'm not sure I had it as a bullet either, but, or intended to be a bullet, let me put it that way. Yeah,
Didn't have.
yeah, it shouldn't have been a bullet.
Okay. That is it.
Okay, anything else?
I'll make a motion to accept the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? So the new business sec, I wanted to let everybody know that today we had a discussion with AES on a private matter about the possibility of a project on property that we own. And I don't have any signed agreement with them, any lease with them or anything like that, but I wanted everybody to know that we're discussing it, so. I just soon abstain from the voting, but if everybody's okay, continue to be involved in discussion. until we get it signed. Sure, we have something in writing.
Sure.
So the first, we don't have any other new business, I don't think. Anybody have anything else?
No, we might have had something, Quill is thinking about, doing something with his property over there.
Okay,
I had a call from Shelley, but apparently nothing, she didn't find out any more information, so
okay,
there's nothing to share. Next month it should be.
okay.
His current location.
His current location between the two owners and distributing property a little bit differently.
Okay, so onto the old business then is the solar law revisions. And can we get a roll call for everybody on the line here? Should have done that before. Anybody on the conference call?
The volume.
Is anybody on the conference call?
They can't answer that unless they have the right code.
Unless what?
They can't answer unless they have the right code.
Unless they're on the phone, right?
If they're on the phone and they just have a listen-only code, most of it's advertised as listen-only call,
Oh,
unless like AES or whoever has. the-
yeah, that's what I was looking. I thought AES might be on there.
No, they sent me an email saying they were not.
They did, okay.
Okay.
So in old business, the solar law revision, just one other thing we probably should talk about is we got a letter from, the town got a letter from AES, which was not addressed to anybody on the planning board, but Wes and I both got a copy of it, and it's from AES. So this is a response to the comments that Labella had about the project. And it's a full set of drawings. It's the 600-page SWIP, and it's a letter that discusses the details of it. But again, it's addressed to Mr. Ebbs, who's a Labella employee, and Sean Polk. So we can send that to everybody, and everybody can look at it just to get an idea of what it's about. Adam from AES did call me, and I didn't call him back yet, but he was wondering about the recommendations for the zoning changes and where they stood with the project. But since this is a town review, seems like we should be focusing on getting the solar changes in place before we review the project, unless the town board directs us otherwise. So,
On that, I talked with Maureen about it for a few minutes, and she called Lance, and Laura Bonier was told to get a hold of Lance on dealing with that.
on what?
The changes for the zoning,
Yeah,
so Lance and their lawyer, we're gonna talk about it.
okay. Okay. So we're at the point where I think the planning board's ready to make a recommendation to the town board on these changes to the zoning. And we couldn't do it at a workshop. We had to do it at this formal monthly meeting. So,
Before we go from, I read through this, and really it's more grammatical.
Yep. Yep.
We read these things so many times.
yeah, it's getting
You know,
old.
it's, So,
Can we make sure we're talking about the same one?
okay, I'm looking at the solar law recommended changes.
Okay.
Is that what you were looking at, or am I jumping to that?
No, that's good. That's what I was looking at too. Yep.
Uh,
Does it start off with 351.15?
350, 150.
Yep, okay.
And it has the things that they changed, right? And I was just going through it, trying to think of how you would do this stuff. Under number 8, the 1-119, H to the setbacks are.
Yep.
Again, if it's where there are 2 or more contiguous parcels that have and it has in parentheses the US setback, requirements shall not apply. So it should be they have a US lease agreement, correct? That's what we're gonna be specific. to
That's right.
This thing, so we will have a lease agreement. So we just need to insert lease agreement, and then that reads fine.
Now, the one thing that word should be contiguous.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a copy that has it in green? Yeah, Wes said that one. That was Yeah. the one you did. I Did went you send it to through- everybody? I sent it to Lee and Lee forwarded it
I
this
did
morning.
forward it today.
Those are just what, the last ones that Lance sent to us to have. Okay.
and then,
So that, what you're saying then, the first thing you're suggesting is HF. And you're thinking it should read what again? Say one more time.
when there are 2 or more contiguous parcels that have, and then we have in parentheses the US.
USSES.
Yeah. Lease agreement, because
Okay.
that's what it is.
Yep.
Setback requirements shall not apply for property line between such parcels. Right, so that's what we agreed with.
Do you have that, Tom, or do you need a copy? of
No,
it?
I got it right here,
Okay.
the green, yep. Okay,
And then if you go up one more, to F, so you're under 119 and you're under F.
Yep.
The first line should be a period after, so appropriate landscaping or screening materials may be required to help screen the solar. Should be period. Because if you read it, and then,
should we say USSES there?
well, yes.
Okay,
So we're all, again, seeing how we went through this and be consistent.
period.
And then put the average height of the solar, and then start the next sentence, the average height of the solar panel should not exceed 12 feet, measured from, the base of the solar rack to the top of the solar array. How, and then we got a period there, however, the town board shall have, I'm looking at my notes, and I wanna make sure I'm reading it right. Shall have the authority to increase the average height of the solar panel array rack up to 8 feet. It should say up to an additional 8 feet as necessary to accomplish the purpose they are intended to serve.
Yes. Mhm.
I know, I don't have to
Yep.
50, but I don't see
No,
it
that's a
4
good
times.
point, yeah.
Someone questions, we have 12 feet and we're 8 feet.
So, shall have the authority to increase the average height of the solar panel array rack an additional
Up
8,
to an additional 8 feet as necessary.
up to an additional 8 feet. Is necessary, okay. I noticed something in 350, you got more, Steve?
I got it.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
I'm jumping out already because I went into the jury thing. Under I, under, no, I can't really talk about it. It's I,
I don't have,
talking about the following requirements of the net for decommissioning.
It is,
It is up.
I think so.
okay, so it starts out with the following
Okay, because I was
requirements.
skipped,
These are
okay.
Yeah.
just the
Okay.
changes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine, we just changed. So number 1, when you start out there, this is a little confusing. It has the USSES USSES, which have been inactive and continuous service for a period. I don't think we need to have continuous service to just remove that. Because I'm not saying they've been inactive. If you follow which have been inactive for a period of 1 year, shall be removed if the owner or operator expense within 6 months from the date of expiration. It shouldn't be inactive and continuous service.
Those two they conflict with each other.
So the purpose of it, I think.
Okay, what I had before was, what I wrote down was, which have not been active and in continuous service.
But we can just, how it is now, we can just go over it and continuous, which have been inactive,
Okay,
for a period of 1 year, so if we get rid of continuous service, and continuous service, just line that out. Highlight. Let you scratch. And that was it.
is inactive and continuous service? Or you're suggesting they mean the same thing pretty much, right?
I'm suggesting they're,
It would be
They're
their
not-
opposite unless you say
They're
not
each other.
in continuous service.
so I want to just put their have been inactive for a period of 1 year, because this is under the decommissioning.
Yep.
Section, so I don't think you want to have in there in continuous service. I know we reworded it back and forth, but it'd be much cleaner if we just get rid of a not continuous operation instead of, have been, we can just leave it as have been inactive.
Mhm.
That was my suggestion, for a period of 1 year.
Okay. So
I think that's all I need.
you basically got four different things then. We changed, in F, we changed that to USSES and have, added the average height, right? That was
Yeah.
1. Number 2, in front of 8 feet, we added an additional 8 feet. Number 3, we made, under HF, we had lease agreement after USSES, that's number 3. And then number 4, we modified, took out in continuous service. So four small changes. No, I was reading 350-115 B also. And that 350-115 is intended to, that sentence B, I was trying to decipher whether that was for USSES or for a residential system. Oh, okay. Sorry. It was, should we, if you notice down on 350-117 in the heading, we labeled that as requirements for small-scale solar freestanding and ground-mounted solar collectors. But then if you go to 315 or 350-115B, we call it freestanding and ground-mounted solar energy systems. So should we rename that to say small scale so it's clear, or don't you think it matters?
It might be specific, if you said it in there, then it's just.
I mean, that's really,
It's really compliant to, so yeah. just-
So add small scale solar before the freestanding, right? Small scale solar, freestanding and ground mounted solar energy systems? They're small scale.
Freestanding or ground mounted small scale solar systems for
Okay.
residential use in all districts is subject to the issuance of small systems in excess of 25K. And then we could put parentheses the USSES because that's what, right, in second. Too much in it, but the ones that are in excess, when they fall under the USSES.
Right, but if it's got residential, it's not a utility scale. B is for, says residential use in all districts, so I wouldn't put in the USSES into that one.
I was
That's
just
what you said.
I was just thinking because of how if we do freestanding or ground mounted small scale solar for residential use in all districts, subject to solar building permit. And for systems in excess of 25K, which is
Right,
the site plan approval by the town board.
yeah.
When we're
They
saying
should be
it-
two separate, yeah,
Well, we already have it in there, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
Because that in excess of type automatically goes to USSES.
Yep.
Mhm.
So. What's not, because I don't have it in front of me, kind of the whole thing, what's the title of 350-150?
Permitting and approvals required.
Okay. It's kind of like we had to duplicate, you know what I mean, because right down there, that was not about
B,
small scale.
B and C
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, B and C are really
Yeah.
redundant.
Yeah, you almost make it, they say the same thing, I think C's more clear where you can have the larger scale. Well, I only clean B up down on 115 because C already addresses what's required under the US.
Mhm.
And just make B talk about small scale, like you said, start with that.
So maybe
Small scale
take-
Solar or ground mount, freestanding or ground mounted. Residential use is allowed in all districts subject to issuance of a solar building permit,
Period.
period. And get rid of the rest of it, because the next one, C, talks about what's required for the large scale.
Yeah, as long as we say somewhere else that 25 kilowatt
You
is
could put
the,
less than 20, we could put, because the small scale is less than 25. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the cutoff for a USES?
What's that?
What is the, I'm drawing a blank, what's the cutoff for the,
25.
is it 25?
Yeah.
It's not, okay, that seems small. That's why doesn't it? I've got 6 small. And you, yeah, and it's small.
so I was just trying to make, okay, small scale, in our definition, small scale solar refers to solar systems or solar thermal that produce up to 25 kW of energy. So.
Okay.
We really don't need to identify it again, right?
No, is D has part of C in it.
Yeah.
So you can just make one standard one.
So it's a period after building permit, right?
Right.
And scratch the rest of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the other piece is the decommissioning, because we're kind of redundant there too, right? That's what you thought. So you want to, what do you think we should do there? We're on the decommissioning sheet, which is 350-119L is where it starts. Actually, 350-119L4. That's the,
Right, and that's why I highlighted that section. I had no idea. I was reading through it and it seems like it run on. and-
Yeah. Now, we had put in there before that decommissioning costs shall be determined by an independent third party professional engineer during the application process for the USSES. So the intent there was to have somebody that wasn't representing the town or the developer,
Mhm.
neutral party reviewing it.
But I think it was redundant to say, this is Lance's point, for independent and third.
Okay. Okay, so independent, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm just keeping track of these by number. That would be change number 7, if we get rid of that. Okay, and then the town board shall, as a condition of approval, require the posting of removal bond. Removal bond. Period?
Or change of to 4. Require the posting of a removal bond for the USSES.
Okay.
You leaving that in there, or you
Hmm?
taking it out? You putting a period there, remove a bond, or you keeping in of the uses?
Oh, on 4,
Yeah,
it's the town board shall, as a condition of approval, require the posting of a removal bond for the USES.
And we had and associated equipment before too.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need that. The SES has all that.
Yeah.
Got it all, the system.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It is in definition, that's what it is.
Okay. All right, and then the value of the bond shall be renewable annually, increasing by 2.5% annually. And you're saying we get rid of that.
Right,
Yeah, let's start that.
and this is what Lance wrote. The language concerning decommissioning and the security are confusing. In one place, it says the value of the bond is to be increased by 2.5% annually. In another place, it is to be maintained at 125% of the estimated cost of removal. So then it says the bond is to be renewed annually while later it says it is to be continuously maintained during the life of the project. I would think a better way to handle this is to say the bond is to be maintained during the life of the project, and the amount of the bond shall be redetermined not less than every 5 years based on 125% of the estimated decommissioning cost. So that's where that sentence comes from. The bond shall be maintained during the life of the project, and the amount of the bond shall be redetermined not less than every 5 years, based on 125% of the estimated decommissioning costs.
Well, the only difference, well, one difference, you're not setting a fixed increase yearly. Before Lance suggested that we had a 2.5% increase on the bond annually. In this new statement you have, says that it shall be redetermined not less than every 5 years. So is that, that means that they're gonna have discretion and negotiation, because 5 times 2.5 is 12, right? And that's what it should increase in the 5-year term. But if you just say it's gonna be increased once every 5 years, they may agree on increasing it 3% in 5 years.
Who does that agreement? I think Lance's confusion is we're saying it two different ways. In one place, we're saying it maintained at 125%. The other place, we're saying increase at 2.5% every year. So if you increase at 2.5% every year, do you have to say maintained at 125%? Because that's in contradiction to it. Or do you just say maintain it at the minimum of 125%? And no matter what, 2.5% may be low.
Well, you're interpreting it different than me then, because my understanding of it from the start is that if it was $100,000 to decommission it, right off the bat, it's $125,000 bond.
Right.
Okay? And then every year, because of the cost of living increase and inflation, every year that $125,000 bond is going to increase 2.5%. Right? So you started out at 125,000, and you're 2.5% every year.
You kind of got to read the whole, it's kind of crazy how we say it, and then he goes down, because I remember Lance himself gave us the language, so that whole yellow box that you had there starts talking about it again.
Yeah, right. That's why I put that in
So
yellow.
I don't know if we should just, if you go back up to where Tom put the trade removal of the bond should we make, they'll go into the project, where do we get this not less than every 5 years?
That comes up to town board.
Okay.
Can put it in annually. And who makes the estimate?
Third-party engineer.
Right. So you go to a third party, you go to the independent source ask them every other year, what's the estimate? Maybe it went up 10%. Decommissioning on that went up 10%. Well, now you can, at 2 years' time, it's still 125%, including that new, you're having it reevaluated each time. It's not just arbitrarily, let's just pick 2.5%, but it's not arbitrary number, I agree, because it's not based on living costs and like that, but it might change.
It could, but the 125 is the baseline to start at,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because if the third-party engineer says it's $100,000 to decommission.
Right.
As a security blanket, the town's gonna say it's 25% more than that.
Right.
Because when it's gotta be decommissioned, you may go, the only contractor available to do it in the time frame needed might be in southern Georgia. So you got 25% cushion, you
Right.
know, to do the work.
Uh-huh.
So the 125 doesn't, in my mind, coincide with the 2.5%. 2.5%.
You review it, somebody reviews it and says that it's not at 125 anymore, you adjust it then. I don't get the 2.5%.
That's what it goes up
Yeah.
yearly.
So,
I don't understand why.
yeah, why? You're at 125.
It's 125% no matter,
Well, here's the problem we have though, because we're not taking into account inflation, which is fine. If you do it annually, it's not a big deal, it's 125. Right?
If you do it
If you
annually,
do it annually. If we say every year you're gonna give us an estimated cost, and you're gonna secure the bond at 125. But if it can't be less than 5 years, so now it's, the board says every 8 years, and you don't index that one,
right,
year 6, I just pick an arbitrary number, you're less, we're all thinking this is going above. I guess the whole point is, probably in the first 5 years of these solar panels, it probably should tier, like, I mean, I don't know, like, we'll like expect to see depending on solar, but 25 years, 27, whatever it is. Then inflation is just another thing on top of the 125 as a starting point. But if he wants to get it, we should have it like we should set it in stone, it's every 5 years. And then as the life of the project gets greater than 20 years, it's every year thereafter. Because that's really when it's like the tail end of your car, that's when you really are gonna take on the risk of
Mhm.
decommissioning. And then it's 125. Because this is all new and no one's decommissioning, but I did ask if some people were into this, and they said the decommissioning costs are all over the small ones that are doing it, because no one's, to your point, they gotta travel, or they got a lot of these coming up, because they're all putting these applications at the same time. It'll be done. So, I guess long story short, if we stick to the 125, we should make it, our updates more frequent, if we're not gonna adjust for inflation. And who bears that cost?
I'd put it at the 125 with the inflation, with a reevaluation every 5 or 8 years or whatever. Because you need that inflation, because 120, like you say, in 4 years, your 125 might not be 100, it might be less, you know? You need the inflation, but you also need to review it. I wouldn't do it every year if you got that inflation on there, but 5 or 8 years, something like that. The way it's worded, it says no less than 3, so that could be 20. I mean, no less than 5, that could be 20.
Mhm.
Or we make a clause in there and say 2.5% annually, reviewed every 5 years to be maintained at 125% minimum,
Yeah, there you go.
right? So 2.5% annually, reviewed every 5 years to be maintained at a minimum of 125% of the value of decommissioning.
Link the two together.
That's a good idea. That's a real good idea.
I'll write it down.
Did you write that down? Say it one more time. I was gonna, hang on, don't say it again. I was
Get the
gonna-
recorder going?
I got your recorder here, because it's always hard to remember those.
I gotta remember.
Okay,
I'd say do the 2.5% annual increase with a review at 5 years to make sure that it is maintained at 120, a minimum of 125% of the decommissioning costs, estimated decommissioning costs at that date. Reviewed every 5 years.
Tom, okay, at your workshop, did you fellas go over any of this the other night, a week ago?
We went over the secret.
Oh, okay. But none of these,
Well, these are, if we conclude here, we're gonna use this as a recommendation.
Yeah. but they did have, it's something like talked about, right, Lee, at the workshop?
I don't think they got to it, though.
Yeah.
So we wound up doing the secrets, the 3 parts on that. It was-
okay. Well, you probably better write this out because we're trying to get this to the town board, right? All right, so if you start out with 4 there, decommissioning costs shall be determined by an independent professional engineer during the application for the USSES. The town board shall, as a condition of approval, require the posting of a removal bond for the USSES, right?
Mhm.
The bond shall be maintained during the life of the project, and the amount of the bond shall be redetermined not less than every 5 years,
Let's change that.
okay? To say-
Redetermined every 5 years, not less than,
So get rid of not less, right?
right?
Okay. So again, the bond shall be maintained during the life of the project, and the amount of the bond shall be redetermined every 5 years based on 125% of the estimated decommissioning cost, period.
Where's the 2.5%?
I know.
Yeah, we gotta add that in there. So here's what you said.
I'd say do the 2.5% annual increase, reviewed at 5 years to make sure that it's maintained at 120, a minimum of 125% of the decommissioning costs, estimated decommissioning costs that they do everything, reviewed every 5 years.
Okay, so we gotta change a little bit, right?
Okay, here. How about take the first part in green and put the part above it in there. The bond shall be maintained during the life of the project, and the amount of the bond project, the bond shall be maintained during the life of the project. The value of the bond shall be renewed annually, increasing by 2.5%.
The bond shall be maintained during the life of the project.
And the value of the bond shall be renewed annually, increasing by 2.5%.
And the value of the bond should be increased annually.
Shall be increased annually by 2.5%.
The bond shall be maintained during the life of the project, and the value of the bond shall be increased annually by 2.5%.
Yes.
Are we missing anything
Nope, then carry on with the,
We didn't mention the 125.
no,
Didn't mention 5 years.
we're getting there.
Okay.
He's a deep thought.
The bond shall be redetermined, the value of the bond shall be redetermined every 5 years based on 125% of the estimated decommissioning costs.
Say it one more time. The value of the bond shall be redetermined every 5 years
Based on 125%, minimally 125% of the estimated decommissioning cost.
based on a minimum of, right,
Yes,
of 125% of the decommissioning cost.
yes.
You had it worded
Hmm?
better. You had it worded better.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay, so the bond should be maintained during the life of the project, and the value of the bond should be increased annually by 2.5%.
I think if I remember. The bond shall be maintained during the life of the project for all agreed of a value, to maintain the life of the project of a value of 125% of the decommissioning cost. The value of the bond will be increased every year, 2.5%. Reevaluated every 5 years to ensure that it maintains. It has to be linked together. That's what you did. You linked them together in the one
I
sentence.
think the problem is we always try to use the verbiage that's in here, then you like fit it in what they have. Because if you go down to the yellow section, again, that says for the life of the utility solar scale, the applicant shall maintain a bond. So it's redundant because we were having, should be maintained during the life. This is what the last verbiage that we were given was in yellow. Payable to the town and amount unless under the New York State, at least equal to 125% of the estimated cost of removal of all components of the utility scale system, including any equipment or facilities, respirators, at site, according to the decommissioning plan. I think it says, what we're talking about, we can put after that section, instead of all this stuff ahead of it, we will require every 5 years a third-party evaluation for the cost of decommissioning, which always has to be minimally at 125%, which we will index between renewals at 2.5%. Right? It needs to go down here, we have it up here, and then we talk about it, that's what he's saying, we're contradicting each other. We say the same thing.
In the yellow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the yellow was the thing that they wanted us to have in there last time.
Right.
You remember?
Yeah,
That was their signage, that we had all these other ones, so we still kind of, we lined out some of it. We just,
It needs to be condensed, it's being done, said
Correct.
twice,
it's saying the same thing.
and we gotta say it right
Yeah.
the first time. We're only gonna say it once, we gotta say it right one time, instead of trying to say it twice. So you start by using the latter half of the yellow ball. yellow block gets kept. And then you make another block below it specified.
But you stop trying to fix what's already on paper, just start out anew and be done with it.
But, I mean, what's in the yellow block is, that's all the words that you need. The first part, right,
Just add the 2.5% in there.
add another block after the yellow block. Everything before the yellow block gets taken out.
Well, you can,
It's
like,
the same.
above the yellow, I'm with you, like, here. Above the yellow block, we can end with a renewable bond for the USSD, period.
Yeah.
Then we line out everything else until we get for the life of the utilities scale, because that was the verbiage that Lance wanted us to have in there last meeting, right? Because, and then we can put in there where we feel appropriate our 2.5%. So let's read, we go from there and we're not being redundant. So we're trying to closely move on for the USDC.
This is under number 4, right? So-
Yeah.
So what are we, we're not keeping, what are we keeping right after 4, you're keeping
You
anything?
see, you got it lined out, like at number 4 on the first page.
Well, 4
The value of
starts,
the bond shall be, I mean, that one,
Yeah.
that part where it's been crossed out.
We're redoing number 4, right? Starting all over. So are we keeping anything there right after 4, or are we going to the yellow?
We can keep the first 2 sentences. of
First
number
2
four,
sentences.
And then we'll keep the yellow.
First 2 sentences.
What's the lawyer speak on the section, the decommissioning plan shall be reduced to a decommissioning agreement between the town
We
and.
never had that. I was just
Where's
gonna
that?
ask that one. We never addressed that anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
First 2 sentences after 4, then go right to the yellow. Then what? You want to add something to do with the indexing? After the yellow.
In the yellow section, would it make sense to keep everything in one sentence down to where it says required by New York State laws or regulations, period? And then start the new section at the what you said about the 2.5% and maintaining it at a minimum?
Yeah, the bond value will be at least equal to 100%, 125% of the estimated cost of removal of all applicants, adjusted annually or inflation at 2.5%.
And reviewed every 5 years.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yellow block gets shortened down to a period right after regulations.
Yep,
New York,
period.
New York laws and
Paragraph start,
regulations.
you got that? I didn't write that, I got the other one written on.
And then
The,
Is that, what's the words?
The value of the bond will be at least equal to 125%, adjusted annually for inflation at 2.5%. Of the estimated cost And then we can keep everything the same, and then not get confused. The last sentence that's in green, the last one they have in that section, where it says upon request, we can just put every 5 years, the applicant or successor shall provide proof of compliance that the bond is maintaining at least 125% of the decommissioning
Proof
costs.
of compliance.
Proof of compliance, yeah. So instead of upon request, we put every 5 years. Or at the request of the town, because let's say they want one sooner, they can do that. So we'll say at least every 5 years. Yeah?
No.
You got it?
No,
Okay.
I got the first section.
Okay. What are you talking about now?
Go from the top at 4, would you?
Yep.
Decommissioning costs shall be determined by an independent professional engineer during the application for the USSES.
Right.
The town board shall, as a condition of approval, require the posting of a removal bond for the USSES.
Right. And then strike.
Okay,
Skip
then
all the way to yellow.
go, now, we're not gonna include the decommissioning plan shall be reduced to a
Take that.
decommissioning agreement. We're not gonna include that?
If we do, we could put that at the end. It doesn't make sense to talk about it before we talk about the value of the bond.
Okay, so,
Okay.
so
Move to
move
the
that
end.
to the end.
Okay. And then you said,
Okay, and then, from there, where do we go?
And then we went from there for the life, right? We just jump
right,
right
To the yellow.
We know, okay. For the life of the utility scale solar system, the applicant or successor or signs shall continuously maintain a bond or other appropriate form of financial security that is acceptable to the town, payable to the town in an amount, unless such amount is otherwise established or required by New York State's laws or regulations.
right, period. And then strike after that.
Yep.
Let me get rid of that. And then you said,
The value of the bond.
Yep.
Will at least equal to 125% the estimated cost
estimated decommissioning cost,
Yep.
right?
of all components of the bond, adjusted annually for inflation at 2.5%.
Slow down. Okay,
You make it what you want in accordance with the decommissioning plan. That's how you want it. I'm gonna deal. All expenses or costs, now this is coming right now, all expenses or costs of establishing and maintaining financial assurances shall be formed solely by the applicant or its successors or assignees. Period. Every 5 years, or upon request of the town board, right? Or, what we got to distinguish that. Every 5 years, or at the request of the town board, the applicant or successor or sign shall provide proof of compliance.
Then it should be reduced. Then we gotta put that decommissioning plan should be reduced to a decommissioning agreement.
We can put after that, the decommissioning plan shall be reduced to a decommissioning agreement between the town and applicant operator.
Are you doing the following?
Multiple pages, yeah.
did you get it written down?
You want to go from the top one time?
I do have YouTube I can go back to too.
Say again?
I have YouTube I can go back to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
You already, what you have, let's make sure.
Yes.
Go right from 4, we're still there again.
Right from the beginning.
Yep.
Yep. And it was decommissioning cost shall be determined by an independent professional engineer during the application of the USSES. The town board shall, as a condition of approval, require the posting of a removal bond for the USSES. Skip that, move that. And then, for the life of the utility scale solar energy system, the applicant or its successors or its signs shall continuously maintain a bond or other appropriate form of financial security that is acceptable to the town and payable to the town in an amount unless such amount is otherwise established or required by New York State law or regulations. The value of the bond will be at a minimum of 125% of the estimated decommissioning costs of the decommissioning cost and the components of all components. Read my scratching.
Yeah. So you added that decommissioning cost. Estimated cost of removal of all components.
At a minimum of 125% of the estimated decommissioning cost of all components,
Period.
period. And then adjusted annually at 2.5% for inflation in accordance with the decommissioning plan, period. All expenses of the decommissioning project shall be borne by, and I didn't,
You can see the reverse if you want. All expenses or costs of establishing or maintaining financial assurances shall be borne solely by the applicant or successors.
Yep. just reiterate what they had. Okay. Every 5 years, at the request of the town,
No, I thought it was, or at the request.
or every 5 years, or at the request of the town? And then I broke down after that.
That's right, it's the same. Every 5 years, or at the request of the town, the applicant or his successors or assignees shall provide proof of compliance.
Okay.
And then after that, we're gonna put the decommissioning plan shall be released to the decommissioning agreement between the town and the applicant.
Okay.
Closing sentence.
Think you got that?
I think between now and looking back at YouTube, yes.
Okay. We gotta vote, we should vote on it tonight though, right?
Is that it? Is there anything else? Is that?
Well, there is one other piece here too, on the host agreement. Right, just that one.
Just the one that,
The first sentence.
right, the town shall have the ability to enter into a host community agreement with any USES applicant. And he suggested changing that to the applicant for a USES shall enter into a host community agreement with the town. And get rid of the shall have the ability to, it's just, they will.
Okay, I got a question on all these. You're saying the minimum, the maximum size for a residential unit is 25 kW, correct? What if a resident wants to put up, say for a farm, a bigger system than that, and they're not using it as a commercial solar. And then you get down here, that we have to sign a host agreement with the town to do that?
Like Panic System is bigger than
Right.
25 kW.
That's where I'm going. We're making these rules, we better make sure we agree with them.
So if they're proposed and reviewed and reviewed.
I thought we differentiated that from that point, because we looked at ES was more of a commercial enterprise for the resale value of electricity.
But there's also a threshold here in size.
No, I know, I thought we addressed it somewhere in, when we had the original, we've seen this 4 times, but I remember us talking about that specifically because
There is
agriculture, a business.
There is a section in there for agriculture. If you're not looking at it, you're looking at,
Well, we modified 350-115B, and I didn't write down the modification, but you made that a maximum of the residential, or you stated that. Somebody-
Yeah, well, no, that was one of the things they had in our definitions, I was mistaken, that was why it was there, but I thought in our discussion to that point, that, because 25 is not that big.
Right, that's not that big.
No, we said,
I know the conversation came up in the past, but what was agreed upon, I don't remember. I don't even remember if we
I
came up
thought
with a
we
number.
said, like, I don't know, we have to look at what we said there, that's a good point. Because I know we addressed it for agriculture, there wasn't, you said it was not gonna be part of this. You're definitely not gonna enter in a hosting view.
Right, that's,
Barn.
right, that's my point there.
It's a difference between, it's a definitional difference between whether or not it's for home use.
Commercial or,
Or you're selling the power.
right.
For yourself.
give the whole thing.
You think it's already addressed somewhere?
I think our intent was to address it.
Here you go, it's right here. It's in section, it's in section 350-114 applicability. And it's E, so it's 350-114E. Solar energy system installed on a farm and designed to serve only that farm shall only require a building permit for systems under 50 kW. Agricultural farm installed solar energy systems of 50 kW or more shall require building permit and site plan review.
But they don't classify as, I don't know about that.
We didn't classify them as USS, ES, and we just said they had to have site plan review, so.
Which makes sense, because I'm sure Panic's system that they put in had to have a site review.
Yeah.
So that's what you're gonna, it's the same thing as a residential, because a residential's gotta come here too.
To get a permit, yeah. Not a site review, unless you're over 50, according to what you just read.
Shouldn't have site review.
Yeah, look at, so that's what we said about farms, okay? And then if you go to 350-115B, we said that, freestanding or ground-mounted solar energy systems for residential use in all districts are subject to the issuance of a solar system building permit, and for systems in excess of 25, a site plan approval by the planning board is required. Or do we change that?
Yeah.
We did change that, right?
The planning board recommendation.
So we should leave them,
We should, yeah.
because there is such a thing.
Now, we got rid of that a minute ago, didn't we?
Right, because we were saying if it's over 25, it's a USS, which it not necessarily is.
'Cause it could be the farm.
Right.
So you gotta go back to 35115B again.
And keep,
We were gonna take that and modify it to remove everything after building permit. But now we need to leave that in there.
Well, now it makes sense why we had
why it was,
Why it
Rex
was
C
in there.
separate. We thought it was the same thing.
Yeah.
That was just because of the amount of the whole. So you're right, just leave B the way it was.
B,
Okay, planning board and then not town board then, too.
No,
No.
Town board.
Gotta
Because
be
it's in
town board.
red, on this one it reads right, approved by the town
Okay.
board, required with the planning board.
Okay. All right.
Great catch.
Were you gonna, didn't we decide at the beginning, small scale solar, were we gonna leave that in? Did
yes,
anybody
we're
else
gonna
write
leave that in
down?
there. Freestanding or ground mounted small scale solar.
You almost put in there, not to be redundant, but it has to be 25 kW agriculture or large residential. To capture when we talk about access to 25 rack. What would be in this?
I think we're just confusing it. I'm confused already.
That it? You vote?
Yeah, is there any other questions then? Or concerns? We didn't really change anything other than wording. That, you know, the concept of it is exactly the same, it's just the word, how it's portrayed, right?
Consistent.
I almost want to just let it go, but I've got to ask. Why the differentiation in 35115 A and B?
So A is not on that sheet, it's on the
A
original, right?
says rooftop or building mounted solar systems shall be permitted in all zoning districts pursuant to a solar system building permit granted by the town code enforcement officer and subject to the requirements of this article. B is freestanding and ground mounted solar systems for residential use in all districts are subject to the issuance of a solar system building permit and for systems in excess of 25 kW, a site plan approval by the
Town board
town board is required
with a planning board recommendation.
with a planning board. It's not in mine.
Yeah.
Right here. So my question comes from the 25 kW. And when you can have a barn big enough to put 25 kW on top of the roof and just. You see where I'm going? Why is the 25 kW restricted to ground mount?
It's not restricted.
Well, freestanding and ground mounted, the 25 kW is only mentioned in the freestanding and ground mounted solar system. It's not mentioned in the rooftop or building mounted solar system.
Freestanding.
You don't see the A. B says in excess of 20, it has a statement in there in excess of 25 kW. A, with rooftop or building mounted solar systems, it doesn't say anything about 25 kW. Should it? Or shouldn't, doesn't it really?
I think,
when you're reading B, the comma's in the wrong place because it's saying in persistence in excess of 20, it's just talking about what permits are required.
I think we intended that if you had a rooftop or a building mount, you already had a structure.
Yeah.
And you're putting it on a structure.
Okay,
Whereas if you had a freestanding, it's kind of a new structure.
okay, okay.
Your question was not that, your question was something related to
The size.
A, not saying anything about size, and B, having a size differential.
Yeah,
Is that what your question was?
I got, yeah. Why doesn't A have a size on it? Why doesn't,
Can you put more than 25 on a roof?
Like a big enough roof.
Big enough roof.
Some buildings you could probably do.
So you could put a 50 on a building that was an existing building, and you would not have to be compliant with the USSES.
Right.
But why, you're putting it on, if that's a building right there,
Yeah.
you're putting it on something that's existing. It's
Right.
not a freestanding ground-mounted system.
I think we did two down there, common sense, I don't know, if that were, but how we went back and defined USSES was a commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
I know it's a concept because in cities, they will put them on top to sell the power. But most residential agriculture is not gonna, someone might knock on your door and say, can I use your rooftop, but the solar system to sell
That's actually
it.
happens.
No, I know, I mean, right, but I don't think that was their spirit of what we were thinking with the size of these, most of these would be implemented in for their own practice use. So I guess we haven't, that's why we require a site plan. It's more,
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, think about the things we have that we require on USSES that are related to it. It's all about the site, it's all about the decommissioning, right? If you put a 50 kW on top of that building, it's the responsibility of the owner of the building to decommission it.
So, Tom, you're saying that
But that's,
D was done for when you had to build a structure to hold it.
Yeah, that's when you had an existing structure, that was what I was.
That's what B is for, is when you have to build a structure for it. You want the town to have especially if it's larger than 25 kW, you want the town to have some
Mhm.
say on site plan. If it's on a roof, but it's a site plan, it's an existing building,
okay,
right?
yep. You don't need a site plan because you're not, okay.
The setbacks are established.
They're already-
building, for instance.
Building extra structure.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. That's all, I just needed to understand why. I lost that. I'm satisfied.
Well, the town board's got the option of changing it all anyway, if they want to, right?
It's our recommendation, is it best we can do together.
So we'll need a recommendation that this.
It's our recommendation to the town.
And we don't really have the document to go with, so we can make the recommendation, and you can get it to everybody and reconfirm. If you get any questions on it, we'll change it, but, yeah.
I'll make a recommendation.
Steve.
These changes and send it to the town board.
I'll second that.
Making a motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm abstained.
Can I make a comment, Tom?
Yep.
We're gonna send this over with a cover letter explaining what your reasoning is and so forth, so we can look at that, or the town board can look at that.
We can do that. The changes that we're proposing to the solar zoning are based upon a review by the consultant for the developer.
Okay, that's all you'd have to put in so that the town board would know where it's coming from. I look at it personally, you gentlemen here know more about this than I do. But I need your recommendation of where you got stuff to do with this.
Okay, from other lands?
Do you want, like, just the draft of what the changes were from the previous one, seeing how they've already?
They got it.
Black, green,
They
and
got
red?
it, but with the plastic too.
Probably the whole thing. So they don't get lost like we just did.
Well, you can send in this over with the changes, and what I'm saying is the cover letter saying that this is attached with the changes, and this is the reason for how we came about with the decision.
Yeah, we basically got our information from three sources. We got them from the developers, the first one that pointed out the inconsistencies in the zoning that was, so he, okay, that was the first one. And then the consultant reviewing the developer's plan provided his comments, and then the town attorney provided his comments. So, I mean, we can put a
Just something,
simple
you know, a paragraph.
one paragraph stating that, yeah.
It was a little confusing when we went over your minutes, trying to decipher.
Yeah.
things out. All we really care about is the solar thing here. What other happened, we don't need to know on your minutes.
Yep. Was there anything else, does anybody feel that there's anything else that brought on these changes or influenced these changes besides those three things?
Conversation between us.
Discussion?
Your consultant, you're talking about the developers?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes you want to be careful that, this didn't come from the developer. We don't want to,
No, I know, but the one thing that the developer did do here is they brought up the inconsistencies that we had related to the town board and the planning board.
I agree, but we didn't change it
To meet
before
with
that.
No, we didn't. I know what you're saying.
We get accused of doing.
How should it be worded? With the advice of the developer? Can't do that.
We don't have to worry about it, let the town board worry about it. I would list them last.
Well,
It's-
we
it's
could sit-
Concerns of the developer.
We don't even have to bring the developer in if we don't want to. We could
There you
say
go.
consultant and the town attorney.
Leave them out.
Yeah, because they didn't ask for any special request, they were just doing it out of courtesy. I mean, really, their advice was spot on. They didn't ask for changes of anything material outside of just.
I agree, but some people
No,
read it
no.
differently.
So the developer, or the consultant was hired with the funds the developer provided to do the review. Yeah. Right? The developer paid the consultant's fee, didn't he? Yeah.
But the consultant, we hired a consultant working on our behalf.
Correct. Good then with that?
Mhm.
I'm kind of surprised the county didn't pick up on this stuff. you know, too, because typically they would, you know, but I think the reason they didn't pick up on this and provide their comments is because they don't have much help right now. Jim lost Sarah and he lost Lampo, Tom Lampo, they both left. So I think on a normal year, we would have had their input too. So we're back to the favorite topic now, which is the solar law, or the battery law. 8 o'clock. Now, this is the 10-page document that is from NYSERDA, right? That's the one you gave us?
Yeah, that's right.
What's that?
I think so.
Okay. And this is, I know this has changed a little bit because they updated it. This is the most recent one that there is. Now this,
Where is that one? Did you send that out?
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
this one has Alabama in it. The one that in the back room, or in the back of the room.
Yeah. So I didn't make a copy of that one because I sort of,
Oh, you didn't make a copy of NYSERDA?
No.
Okay,
yeah, if you want me to.
so we only way we could do that here then, right? Right, I don't know what they would do it. Okay.
That's good sound. It wasn't very,
They decreased the sound just a little bit.
Can you discuss that they outside council, Natalie? Not said that in last.
They use the Nixon Peabody in there. All right.
Could you get that?
Yeah. You got to find your guy, right? Model permit, 15.
So how are we doing this?
The mile off.
7. There we go.
Anybody hear what, I don't know, I missed it, I got out of the car, but they had a thing about Tesla and a battery thing that they were hooking their way down in Texas to help out with the super thing. Anybody hear about that? Was that I got it, it was a little teaser on the car radio when I got out. And here's the rest of it. It was-
Like a portable battery?
Yeah, I don't know, they teased it that Tesla had some portable battery system they were hooking in the grid to help out everything.
They're containers. You know, those containers on wheels, put them on boats, put them on wheels. They're all doing that. I mean, and you see one here that was just on the back wall. That's how they're doing it, you know, you put them in a container, drive them up and put them on blocks and start wiring them together. All self-contained there. This is, I think it's gonna become a standard form factor. Be able to set them up, modularize them.
What are we doing here? We're going over this?
Yeah, how we doing it? I've got an Alabama here. I got the original model law. I got a
What are you
Shelby,
doing?
I got a Shelby one here.
I only got Alabama. So I don't think I had one of them.
Shelby one here was like nothing, you know, 2 pages.
Send that
This
to
is not the
everybody.
I said everybody.
So we talked, at the last meeting, we talked about, or workshop, whichever it was, we talked about the fact that everybody kind of felt the best thing they could do was use the model law.
That's what everyone else is doing, but.
Well, not the minimum. I mean, I think we gotta look at what's important to us and change it, but yeah, it's a basic to go by.
This has to go to, this would be, only be a recommendation of the town board. The town board would have to have public hearing and go to the county and everything. It wouldn't be us doing it because it's a zoning change. So it would just be our recommendation. And they do, we realized this last time that they update this frequently because you had a different one than.
What were the highlighted changes? That's gonna be it. Did you have them?
No, we didn't. We didn't have any, I mean, we kind of went through Clarendon and Alabama.
No, I mean, NYSERDA's changes and things.
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know that.
I mean, all the other towns do that, but the only thing we put on change, the commissioning thing talks about the buying and someone who receives the same, be consistent with what we require from. So. Talks about the commissioning fund.
Mhm.
Where are you? Where's G and what?
Are you on, are you, okay?
Okay, I'm still asking how are we doing this? And you're
No,
talking-
I'm just looking at it. I just tried to, we're on this area.
Of which?
I say we have another workshop study just to go over, this, and this only. No, I'm just make it out. We got.
You know, it took 3 meetings to get this solar right. It took a while.
Correct.
Page 10.
I don't disagree.
This is not the same.
You don't wanna do that, you're on all these things.
If you could send me the most up-to-date one,
Sure.
and then start from there.
You got, you just said.
You just said
Oh, okay.
You're on
You sent it through Leeds?
I sent it to Gmail. What's it? GMLUEIN.
All right, well, let's just make sure you use those things. There you are. Good job.
Because I've got a copy of the, who's this, Alabama in here, which follows very close to the, sort of model law.
It's not open.
Leaves out a bunch of stuff. Like they don't, like, Alabama doesn't have anything to do with tier 3. which is in the model law.
Tier 3?
What I'm saying,
Was it Alabama that combined a couple of them?
they just shorten a lot of stuff out. They follow the same.
I think I probably got 8 of them open.
Just leave a lot of stuff out.
I was waiting for it to pop up, it was just popping up at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's 4 or 5.
Yeah, we didn't never have a tier 3, to my knowledge. Everybody always had 1 and 2 tier.
You're looking at other people's.
Alabama only had 1 and 2, and Clarendon's only got 1 and 2. Does, on the definitions part in the NYSERDA, does it say that batteries utilized in consumer products are excluded under definitions of batteries? Yeah. So batteries utilized in consumer products are excluded from these requirements.
We start with number 1 and go down, I think. Seems like we want to start with number 1 and work our way down.
Yeah. I don't disagree. The question is, do we want to change anything from what NYSERDA is suggesting here? And do we want to change anything from what Clarendon and Alabama already have?
Well, Clarendon and Alabama changed, have not taken everything out of the model law, so they've obviously changed things. Likelihood is that we'll do the same.
Well, what did they change?
So start with number 1,
Authority?
authority. That's pretty much the same. Look at the model law.
Mhm.
Basically, just change some words so that systems to the town. Because they, model law leaves it open for cities, towns, villages. And number two, statement of purpose. It's the same.
They added E.
Because of town of Alabama in there, from the town of Perry. And they had A, B, C, D, and E for some paragraphs where, on this one here that I have in my hand from Alabama, they only go D.
Yeah.
That's what this one was, B. They asked me to be.
The new one only goes to D.
You don't have any? Then you go into definitions.
There's the Clarendon added an E, but the heading for the statement of purpose is really what E is, so it's really about the same, that part.
Sounds like it's changed by the time they wrote it. It was in the NYSERDA, they had an E in an old version.
No, this is old.
So they probably wrote theirs when NYSERDA was at that old version.
And so they only have 2 tiers. You guys are talking about 3 tiers, and this, the new one has 2 tiers.
Well, we're number 3, definitions. Definition of battery. Battery energy storage management system. I don't know if you want to go word for word. Some, they're not, what I see here from Alabama is not word for word. Unless it's word for word with the new system. It's not word for word for the old one.
You want to read something that they got changed, and I'll tell you if it's in the new one.
You want to read what
You want
the town of Alabama has written? Without you.
Yeah, anything that you think has changed is different. You know, just see if it goes right along this one, it's E with the new one.
Well, you start with battery. In the model law, it just says battery : well, what Alabama wrote was battery parentheses IES, or like battery and batteries.
Yeah.
Is that how they did
Yeah,
it?
that's how the new one is.
Yeah, Clarendon adopted it first, and then the only thing that's changed is just their format. And then Alabama just, that's what we got, so they use the newer version from 2020. That's all there is.
You could say that for every case here, because the old model law under A, tier 1 battery energy storage system includes either, and it goes through a whole list of stuff here. Where the Alabama one, A, tier 1 battery system storage, battery energy storage systems have an aggregate energy capacity less than or equal to 600 kilowatt hour.
That's the new one. And then B has tier 2 as an aggregate, that's greater.
So it's just the difference between the old model and the new model.
Yeah.
So how we just review, are we reviewing Alabama to see if we keep it? That what we're
If
doing?
it could go different ways, just go down through the NYSERDA and apply that to Barry.
I think,
Never
you know,
mind Alabama.
if we talk about some of these things like, you know, lighting and vegetation and noise, and just figure, okay, what would we want? You know? And change that, because these are the minimums, and like right now, like I see the noise, you know, that should be probably 40.
Noise is what, where are you, number what?
I'm at page 10 of the new NYSERDA minimum.
I don't know what page.
So it's on your number 7, and there's
On Alabama?
permitting requirements for tier 2. And then when you find the 7, it's down under number 10.
We want to skip from, skip from 3 to 7 now, so.
I'm not skipping anyway. I say we just sit down and do this in a workshop, and get it done. I mean, the only changes we follow, we're so close to the solar, that we might as well just, if we have to incorporate, because they're 7 feet, we might as well keep everything the same that we had and be done with it, except what they have, as far as. Just work through this, like you said, logically, and hang it out. Agreeing with you. There's nothing more. You're looking at.
I'm looking at you like, what are you saying? What are you saying?
I'm agreeing with you.
Same thing you're saying.
Same thing you're saying.
Number 3.
Yeah, you lost me.
Cell commissioning, dedicated use buildings, dwelling units, energy code. These are all definitions, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't be anything,
They are what they are.
yeah, what they are. The only thing to think of is if you want to add something.
Yeah, I would think going through it like Steve suggested is a good idea, page by page, in a workshop, if everybody is agreeable with that. The one thing, the first thing I see that is, we're gonna have to talk about is where we're gonna allow it, because,
What number is that?
you know, this is on page 4 of Alabama, which would be number 6
Okay,
for, on the NYSERDA, because, I mean, they give you a blanket description in NYSERDA, but we're gonna have to decide in our town whether we want them to be, what kind of district we want them in. We only require, or we only allow our USSES in certain districts.
AR.
Right.
We don't want them in our business district, that's the only, that,
We talked about this briefly,
Right.
the fact that maybe someday somebody might want to have a battery pack in a business district with their building. Right?
because number 6 here, Alabama, battery energy storage systems shall be permitted in agricultural, residential zones, they are, right? Commercial zone, industrial zone, that's, we only have what?
We got business at AR and planned development. Something else, R1, we got some R1 now.
No, you're fine.
You got rid of all that. So really only got 3 then, right?
Battery energy storage system permit. And exempt from site plan review. Is that a fragmented sentence or what?
Which one you looking at?
Number 6, where you?
Alabama or,
Alabama.
okay,
I don't know how closely it represents model law. I've got Alabama in my hand. You got that model law in front of you. Some of you.
yeah, tier 1, which is the smaller one, they say you can have in all those zones, and you don't have to have a site plan.
That's what it means, that all exempt from type one.
That would be 600 or less, based on the definition.
He's moving to Alabama.
Huh?
Throw that Alabama one on the floor.
That's all I got.
We gotta decide on what template we're using here, either Alabama, NYSERDA, or Clarendon. And go with one of them.
We're all looking at something different.
Well, okay.
I'm looking at what I got.
Throw it out.
If we go with
I got nothing.
as the minimum, and we work through it logically and say, we can change this, we can change that. The only benefit that Alabama had is they had somebody look at it, right?
Yep.
Buffalo look at it, so they got their suggestions there.
I don't think it's all that bad to look at what they did.
No, I think it's, I agree, it's a good idea to see what they, let them go through night service. Too.
I agree, but everybody's gotta start with NYSERDA and then refer to
Yep.
in the workshop.
Well, we got nice order here on this one, over there, and
Yeah.
over there, you know, probably over there.
He has the other one, so
I've got an old one. I can see the old nice order throwing that out, nobody's having that.
Well, do we want to just distribute these at the workshop then?
Yeah.
Lee can print them all out for everybody and we'll distribute them. We need the current Alabama, we need the most current NYSERDA, right?
Yeah, that should be enough.
Okay.
And we need, I guess I just saying, if we have any zoning that's already done for noise, for setback, things like that, it would be consistent.
You mean for the setbacks related to our current solar?
Or solar for, like, they just did the wind ordinance and they put in a sound setback thing. If you're gonna have that sound, might as well be consistent with the same sound for this.
So,
You're suggesting we have the same sound restrictions
Mhm.
for windmills as we do for storage?
Sound.
I don't know what noise did it make.
That's, I mean, they got in there 60 decibels and, you know, in our wind, we're down to 40.
And then some kind of cooling system.
Fans and cooling.
So you just have it set back far enough that, you know, you get to that sound level. It's not a problem.
Don't have to worry about flickering.
well,
Plus the better.
if we had, do we need anything else then to
Setback things for turbines are for fall. I mean, I don't see the setback requirements for battery storage be anything comparable to.
Well, setbacks are for sound, I mean, for different, the vibrations and the sound levels.
I thought there were setbacks for all zones.
You know, it's for ice throw and
Too.
and throw if you get a blade that breaks, and one part of that's gonna, you know, go with it and stuff like that. But sound maybe.
would we just have similar setbacks that we have the solar for the
Yeah.
battery?
Seems like that'd be more,
Apples to apples. Yeah.
the words right out.
Okay. We had, if we're gonna pass on that, we had the next item on the agenda was the county, I think.
The county was canceled.
Did
County-
you want to set a date for workshop?
Yeah,
And we're on the, still there?
Do it on, either Monday, the 15th, or Monday, the 22nd. One of those two?
Have merged.
22nd?
It feels like every week.
Okay.
Do it on this one second. Somebody.
It'd be like next week. So it'd be like a paying job here pretty soon, not being paid for it.
Tomorrow is the 27th.
Okay. 6:30?
And that's all we're gonna do.
Yep. We're done with the solar, yeah. Unless we get some comments back from the town, but hopefully we won't from the board, you know.
I make a motion that our workshop be only on battery storage. I guess that's.
You said go on to county?
What's that?
You said go on to county?
Yes.
County was canceled, but did you get this in your?
Yeah, I did.
I was just gonna mention that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The letter from county, there was a ad for the 2021 Broome County Municipal Training is having a Zoom meeting March 29th, 6:30 for renewable energy leasing on agricultural lands. If you're interested.
That'll count our training.
Yes, 1 hour toward the training.
Oh, no. How many hours we need? 4.
Has anybody did any of those, whatever they got going Thursdays or?
Last Thursday or what, Thursday?
Yeah.
I did the one. They're skipping April. I guess you gotta sign up every time, every month, so.
I don't like Thursdays, I try to get one day off.
But that's it. If you want this, or I'll scan this and email it around. How's that? Okay.
Okay, I'll write the letter and get it to you, Lee, the cover letter for the
Okay.
recommendation on the zoning
Okay.
modifications. Okay. Just need a motion for adjournment then.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You all guys remember Jerry Edwards?
Yeah.
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 Oh, he died? Oh,
Today, or I don't know. I got notice today.
I think he was on the hawk. Betsy just told me about it last hour. Before I left.
Friday, Christopher Mitchell.
Really?
Sitting in the car.
Yeah.